Welcome to Pink Radio with Prestige. This is the place for you, the diva boss entrepreneur who needs quick tips on building your crave-worthy brand. This is your host, Nicole Doss, CEO of the Prestige Society, a membership organization for women entrepreneurs who believe in building powerful networks while slanging in their industries. So I want you to go ahead and grab your favorite cup of coffee and get your favorite tips right here with Prestige.
Hey. I am so happy that you guys have come back for another episode of Pink Radio with Prestige. It's been a minute. I'm so sorry. But I gotta tell you, getting my life in order, dealing with this new normal, being this homeschooling parent. Honestly, I don't even homeschool, to tell you the truth. The 17-year-old, she does what she does. The 5-year-old kind of does what she does. Everyone seems to be complying and meeting all the regulations. So my kids have been really easy peasy. I haven't really had a problem with keeping their schooling intact. I think it's keeping the 5-year-old entertained that is probably the hardest. But all while trying to be on conference calls and meet deadlines, it truly has been somewhat of a challenge. And so I miss y'all. I haven't really been on my podcast in a while, and I'm so sorry, guys, but no worries, because being that I think we are finally kind of finding our way with our new norm. So we're back to making sure that we are doing our workshops and making sure our members are being fed with all awesome information that they need in order for them to be great during this time. And that's kind of what I want to talk to you ladies about. And this conversation is really around the necessity of pivoting your business during this time. So what I thought was really interesting is about 2 weeks ago, one of my members had posted in our members group how it was really important to pivot your business at this time, and gave us examples of how other companies are actually doing their pivot. One of these really great examples is actually Tito's Vodka. So Tito's Vodka is a vodka company, as it clearly states. And one of the things that they've decided to do as they have pivoted in this time, or at this time, was to turn their vodka into now, or vodka company into now being able to make Tito's hand sanitizer. I think one of the things that really allowed them to easily make the pivot where people can say, wow, this makes sense, was once everyone ran out of hand sanitizer, and retailers and your drugstores no longer had any in stock, people began to post DIY of how to create your own hand sanitizer. And the two main ingredients you would see in this would be aloe vera gel and vodka. So now that you could see that people were using vodka, people were using aloe vera gel, it would not be hard then to see a vodka company now making hand sanitizer, because not for nothing, the internet has already helped make the connection between vodka and hand sanitizer, where if there weren't all of these people out there pushing this information out, then it would probably be pretty hard for people to see the connection, maybe not trusting the hand sanitizer and feeling like it would be inadequate during this time. So that was really, I think, an awesome thing about that particular pivot. So when my member, she actually posted that, I thought this was really a great conversation of what all entrepreneurs need to take into consideration, specifically if your industry has been more impacted by the virus than others. So let me give you an example. If you are a coach, yes, you will be impacted because people may watch their money a lot closely. Maybe some of your clients have lost their jobs or their livelihoods. So if that's the case, then it will be harder for them to maintain paying your coaching fees. And so in turn, they may have to cancel their service with you. But nonetheless, there are some people who are still working, who are doing pretty okay financially. They're watching their money in the bank, they're watching the money in the stock market, but for the most part, for like right now in this moment, they can afford you. They are going to continue paying you. But if you are a hairdresser, if you are an esthetician who owns her own spa, you are shut down. If you are a hairstylist who works in a salon, or if you're an esthetician who works in a spa, let's say you don't own the spa, you are impacted by the virus because your establishment where you're working has been closed down and you're no longer allowed to, due to social distancing, to do the craft that you've learned. You cannot touch people's faces. You cannot wash their hair. And so with all of that, you literally have a stoppage in how you are able to generate an income. So you can see that there are some entrepreneurs who are impacted more heavily than others. Nonetheless, we are all impacted by the virus. And because of that, pivoting your business is absolutely imperative. So let's start with the definition, because I always like to start with the definition. So it says here that a pivot usually occurs when a company makes a fundamental change to their business after determining, usually through market research, that their product isn't meeting the needs of their intended market. So with this, if your market is now impacted financially, impacted emotionally, impacted, physically by this particular pandemic that is going on right now, then you will need to pivot your business, because the way your business was designed prior to the pandemic, there was a different need. Right? And so now you'll find you'll need to pivot your business so that now you can meet their needs. Let's talk about some of those needs. I know I gave you 2 examples about impacts, but let's talk about how someone's need could change. So I go to a gym and I find that although I don't think I eat throughout the day as much as some memes may suggest, we spend a lot of time in the kitchen. I know that just kind of being in one space and not being able to go to my work gym or not being able to go to my personal gym has definitely impacted my midsection, right? So now if I can no longer go to the gym, then I have a different need because I can't go to the gym. So now I need something that's in the home. So that would be a great opportunity for my gym to pivot, because they can no longer provide me the location, but they can provide me a service. And so their pivot would now be going from providing me a location where I can take classes and use their equipment to now bringing content to me where I'm able to do workouts at home. So that's a pivot, right? Another pivot would be the real estate industry are struggling with the pivot. Their pivot is like, I don't know. It's a lot of red tape, a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of consortiums that have to say yay or nay before they take the next move. But unfortunately, their pivot is like turning the Titanic. It's like a very slow pace. But a simple pivot would be simple in theory, not in actuality, of course, because of all the red tape that they have. But if you can no longer sit in person at a closing company to close on a property, then you would just make it a virtual and electronic experience. Virtual and everyone going on Zoom to meet at the virtual closing table, and then everyone maybe sharing their screens and then being able to sign the electronic documents. So doing those kind of things would help with their issue. The problem is you have to get all of that approved before they're able to move forward. So, and usually it's like at state level and then have to go from national level. So the real estate agents really have a different kind of barrier, but nonetheless, the needs are changing. So maybe, the home seller doesn't want potential buyers in their home for fear that they may be bringing certain things into their homes. And so also maybe the buyers don't want to go and visit different homes, not being sure what is in those homes. And so now the need for more virtual viewings is really important because of the fact that they're unable to be there in person. So that's a great example of, the need of your client changing. Now, this isn't based off of like their preference. It's based off of, the way that the pandemic has really forced us into this self-distancing and staying at home. So these are the reasons why you will want to really consider what your pivot is. So let's talk about how do you pivot your business and how are you able to really survive this pandemic with your business. The first thing you need to do is create a pivot plan. So ask yourself, how can I leverage technology to meet the need of my clients. So, I've really been thinking about that for hairstylists because for me, it's like if you don't have the talent, then nothing you can do, from a distance or over whatever can really help. So we'll talk a little bit about when you can't pivot, then how do you position? So create your pivot plan. Your pivot plan may be something where you change what you're doing from current state to your now desired state to meet the need of your clients and to serve them in that new state. Or it may be to create a new way of you doing business so that you can pivot your business, but it's not so that you can execute to serve them in this desired state, but it's to, and desired state just means a new state of how you desire to run your business, not desired state of the pandemic, because that is not a desire at all. But what you would want to do is say, okay, then maybe I'm not going to focus on the business per se as far as executing it out, but maybe now I need to create content so that I am really focused on how I am positioned in the industry. So think about it. One is around execution of the pivot. The other is positioning because of the pivot. So with that, I want you guys to take your first step in really thinking about what is the positioning or the pivot execution that you need to plan for in order for you to serve your tribe. All right. The second thing that I want you guys to do is actually make a plan or create goals that will help you with your pivot plan. So one of the things I have to say that happened probably the first 2 weeks of dealing with COVID-19 was the lack of desire that I had to plan for my business. I will say the first 2 weeks felt really depressing for me. And I felt like I had no clue what was going to happen from day to day. So forget week to week, day to day, something different was happening, from the closing of businesses to the curfew to the stay-at-home mandate. So all of these things were happening that felt so odd, that felt so end of days that I had no desire to focus on my business. I really only had a desire to get in the good book, read the good word, really try to deal with the craziness that was going on in my head because I was definitely going down this really dark rabbit hole of fear and anxiety. And then most of all, I think what was really important is that I wanted to make sure my family was safe and that we were okay. So, dealing with my daughter who's a senior in high school, not being in school, making decisions about do we take, our youngest to daycare or not. All those things were really starting to get to me emotionally and personally. So, I had no desire to focus on my business. Maybe after the second week, I was kind of over it. Like, this is the new norm. We've kind of been in the new norm for 2 weeks. And I started seeing that people were trying to find a way to push through. And I realized that it's okay. Because I think a part of me felt guilty too. I felt guilty in selling. I felt guilty in pushing ideas. I felt guilty in moving my business forward because I really just felt like, how could I move forward with my capital, venture? I wanted to do capital fundraising for the Prestige Society. I wanted to look at how do we move into getting a brick and mortar? How do we move into getting staff? How do we move into really moving the business and expanding the business so that we can serve others in a way that is a lot more efficient than me just doing everything? And all of that just came to a pause. All of that for me just felt like all of those great ideas and desires just were for nothing. So after week 2, I was just like, no, you know what? You still you can't give up. You just have to figure out what does this new normal look like? Hence the whole conversation around a pivot. And so I started creating goals. I started using my Boss Life Squad planner. I started looking at what my business goals for the week were. I began to look at what my new business ideas were going to be because you need new business ideas if you're going to pivot your business. And so creating, virtual networking roundtables for members only to build the sisterhood during this time of need, focusing on even, getting those who are not members in an environment where they can still network during this time of need, offering lunch and learn series, workshops for my members. All of these things were things that we were definitely thinking, that we started putting into place because I had to really move forward in our efforts, but in a different way that was relevant and that also was empathetic to those who are impacted, either emotionally, physically, or financially by this pandemic. So definitely something that you want to keep in mind as well. Create these goals. The goals will hold you accountable. The goals will move you forward. And I got to tell you, so like last week, I think was the first week I started like getting back into my planner. This is something that I used to do like clockwork. Love my planner, always fill out my planner. Boom, I'm good. So this time I decided, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to start filling out my planner. So I started filling out my planner and I can't say I was really focused, right? So I wasn't really like crossing stuff off. I was writing stuff down, which was definitely some progress from the previous weeks, but I was not crossing things off. Yesterday was the first day that I started crossing things off, like setting my timer back to 30 minutes, doing a new goal, doing a new goal, doing a new goal. It felt great to get back into how I normally knock out my days. So I'm going to tell you guys, don't just write down goals, set your timer, cross off things when they're done. Start getting into that, back to that feeling of productivity in your days. So definitely do that. And then the third thing I would say I want you to do, so just to go back, the first thing is I want you to create a pivot plan for your business. 2, I want you to create goals that will help you with your pivot plan. And not just goals, you're going to have goals, set timers, cross things off, get very productive and intentional with your days. But last but not least, I want you to learn some new skills, because if you're going to pivot your business, then you may be doing things differently than you have done before, which means that those muscles are not really strong because you didn't have to really focus on those things. So this is something that I really want you to do. We have incorporated Lunch and Learns. So we're doing how to create a podcast, how to create a podcast, how to do your Printful merchandise, as well as I can't think of the other one. Oh, and how to do Canva like a boss. So getting into Canva, learning your podcast, and really understanding merchandising. Those are 3 series that we're actually going to do probably for over the next couple of weeks or so, just for our members. Because of course, 1 hour does not make you a pro. So having these repeated for some time will help us really dive into different things that we're doing. Or that I do when I use these particular tools. And so this is something that'll help them, because we did a virtual speed networking event last Thursday between members and non-members. And what came out of that was that this is the time for content creation. And so if you aren't in that vein of creating content, then you need to spend some time learning how to create content. For me, I really want to get into understanding analytics. Data really excites me. It tells me a story. It tells me a story so much more clear than an emotion. So I can say, I feel like people aren't really engaged with the content, but I need to be able to see the numbers and figure out the behavior so that I know what I need to do differently with my business. So those are some things that I'm getting into, skills I'm learning. So, using things like Google's My Business, thanks to the president of my South Jersey and Philadelphia chapter, Jenny Ortiz. She's the founder of Creations by Jen. And she told us about this really awesome platform. And I'm like, ooh, let me go look. So I want to get into that. I really want to understand FB Pixels. So there's all these different things that I want to learn so that I can understand things like the ad world, or I can understand things like BI for small businesses, which is business intelligence for small businesses. So these are all things that I want to add to like my business acumen. Think about the things that you want to learn, because see, I can teach girl bosses how to now use analytics. We can make analytics sexy for the girl boss. And so those are things that, for me would help benefit my tribe. What do you need to learn that will help benefit your tribe during this time? Those are the things that you need to build your skills up on. So with that, ladies, I'm going to let you go and have an awesome day. I know this isn't as long as, my normal podcast episodes are, but you know what? You're still getting gems, y'all. Y'all getting gems, and y'all about to go and do this fabulous work. So with that, I'm going to say have a wonderful, awesome, and fabulous day. Do not give up. You merely just need to pivot your business. All right, bosses, be blessed.